Her company sent her a memo last October. New anti-idling policy, effective immediately. No running the engine for more than 5 minutes while parked. Violators get written up. 3 write-ups and you are terminated. The memo mentioned fuel savings. It mentioned environmental responsibility. It mentioned corporate sustainability goals. It did not mention that she would be sleeping in minus 20 degrees outside of Fargo, North Dakota, with no heat source in a metal box the size of a closet. The company saves $11 in diesel every night. She does not idle. She almost lost 3 toes. She has been driving long haul for 9 years. She runs refrigerated loads, mostly produce, on routes between the Midwest and the Northeast. She is 5'4". The sleeper berth behind her cab is 72 inches long and 36 inches wide. That is 6 feet by 3 feet. Smaller than a twin mattress. She cooks, sleeps, changes clothes, and survives winter inside that space. And the heating system she built using truck stop parts, hardware store supplies, and one critical piece of equipment the company does not know about would make most RV owners feel like amateurs. But here's what most people don't realize about sleeping in a truck cab during extreme cold. The cab isn't just cold, it's a heat vampire. That steel shell conducts thermal energy away from your body, roughly 400 times faster than wood. Every surface you touch, the walls, the ceiling, the floor, is actively pulling warmth out of the air. Without the engine running, a sleeper berth reaches outside temperature within 90 minutes. At minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, that's not uncomfortable. That's organ failure territory within hours. And roughly 47,000 female drivers are dealing with some version of this every winter because their companies decided fuel costs matter more than the person burning it. So how does she turn a freezing steel coffin into something she can actually sleep through? It starts with the walls. Her approach would surprise even experienced winter campers. The first thing she did when she got this truck was line every interior surface of the sleeper berth with Reflectix. That silver bubble wrap material looks like something from a low-budget science fiction movie. It costs about $1 per square foot, and she used 32 square feet of it. $32 to cover the ceiling, both side walls, and the back panel behind her mattress. The foil layer reflects radiant body heat back inward instead of letting it pass through the steel and disappear into the frozen air outside. Without it, her body heat radiates through those walls like they are not even there. With it, roughly 60 to 70% of that radiant energy bounces back toward her. But Reflectix alone is not enough when you are talking about minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It handles radiant heat loss, but does nothing for conductive loss, which is the heat that transfers through direct contact with cold surfaces. For that, she layered closed cell foam panels over the Reflectix, 1/4 inch thick, cut with a box cutter, attached with spray adhesive. Another $20 in materials. The foam creates a dead air barrier that slows conductive transfer dramatically. Building scientists call this R-value stacking,
She calls it not dying. Now here's where she did something most truckers miss entirely. She insulated the opening from the cab to the sleeper. That opening between the driver's seat area and the sleeping compartment is basically a giant hole in your insulation envelope. The windshield alone is roughly 12 square feet of uninsulated glass, radiating cold directly into the cab. She hangs a heavy thermal curtain across that opening every night, one she sewed herself from a moving blanket and a reflective emergency blanket stitched back to back. It divides the truck into two thermal zones. The cab side freezes, and she doesn't care. The sleeper side retains heat. That partition alone accounts for roughly 10 to 15 degrees of temperature difference between the two zones. Arctic researchers use the same partitioning principle in expedition shelters. You don't heat the whole structure. You isolate the smallest livable space and heat only that. Her sleeper berth is 18 cubic feet. Her entire truck cab, including the driving area, is roughly 300 cubic feet. By cutting off the cab, she reduced the volume she needs to keep warm by 94%. That's not a hack. That's a thermodynamic strategy. But insulation only slows heat loss. It does not generate heat. And at minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, you need an actual heat source. That's where the piece of equipment her company does not know about changes everything. Bolted underneath her bunk, hidden behind a storage panel, she installed a Chinese diesel heater, a 12-volt unit that taps directly into her fuel tank and burns roughly 1/10 of a gallon per hour. At current diesel prices, that is about 40 cents an hour. $3.20 for an 8-hour night of heat. Her company's anti-idling policy saves them $11 per night. Her diesel heater costs her $3.20. She is subsidizing their policy with her own money just to stay alive. The math makes her furious every time she thinks about it. These units cost between $150 and $300 online. They are standard equipment in European trucks, where anti-idling laws have existed for decades. American carriers could install them factory standard for a fraction of what they spend on driver turnover. The average cost to recruit and train a replacement driver is between $8,000 and $12,000. A diesel heater costs $200. But that would require companies to view drivers as humans instead of line items. Installation took her a weekend at a truck stop in Iowa. She ran the fuel line, mounted the unit, and vented the exhaust through a small hole she drilled in the floor. The combustion is completely sealed from the cabin air. Fresh air feeds in from outside, burns the diesel, and exhaust exits underneath the truck. The heated air that enters the sleeper berth is clean. No carbon monoxide risk, as long as the exhaust vent stays clear, which she checks every single time she parks. Every single time, no exceptions. Carbon monoxide killed 23 people in vehicles last year. She knows this because she looked it up. The heater runs on a thermostat. She sets it to 55 degrees, not 70, not 65, 55. Why? Because at minus 20 degrees outside, running the heater high enough to reach 70 creates a massive temperature differential between the interior air and the cold steel walls. That differential causes
Condensation. Condensation soaks insulation, grows mold, and rusts the cab from the inside. 55 degrees with a good sleeping bag is the sweet spot. Warm enough to sleep safely, cool enough to prevent moisture disasters. She learned that balance the hard way during her third winter, when she woke up to water dripping from her ceiling onto her face. Mold appeared within a week. She had to strip and redo the entire insulation layer. Never again. She also cracks the roof vent about a quarter inch during sleep. Sounds insane when it's minus 20 degrees outside, but that tiny gap lets moisture-laden air escape upward, while the heater replaces it with dry, warm air from below. The result is a slow convection loop that keeps humidity manageable without significant heat loss. Building engineers call this controlled ventilation. She calls it the reason her sleeping bag still works after 3 winters, instead of turning into a damp, useless sponge by January. Most drivers skip this step. Most drivers also replace their bedding twice a season and can't figure out why. Moisture is invisible until it ruins everything you depend on. Diesel heaters can fail, glow plugs burn out, fuel lines freeze. The unit she bought from a seller online arrived with a faulty control board that died on night 3. She spent that night at minus 11. That was the night she almost lost her toes, and the night she swore she would never rely on a single system again. Now she runs layers. Each layer is designed to keep her alive independently if everything else fails. Her sleeping system starts with a 0-degree rated mummy bag, not a rectangular bag. Mummy. The tapered shape eliminates dead airspace around her feet and legs that her body would otherwise waste energy trying to heat. Inside the mummy bag, she wears a merino wool base layer, wool socks, and a fleece neck gaiter she can pull over her nose. Cotton is banned from her sleeper completely. Cotton absorbs moisture from sweat and breath, holds it against your skin, and accelerates heat loss. Wool and synthetics wick moisture away and insulate even when damp. Every winter survival manual, from the Army to the Coast Guard, says the same thing. Cotton kills. She takes it literally. On top of the sleeping bag goes a 12-volt heated blanket plugged into an auxiliary battery she installed under the bunk. These blankets draw about 4 amps. Her auxiliary battery holds 100 amp hours. That is 25 hours of heated blanket on a single charge, more than enough for a 10-hour rest period with plenty of margin. The blanket does not need to be hot. It just needs to be warm enough to supplement her body heat during the 3 to 4 in the morning danger window, when core temperature drops to its lowest point. The auxiliary battery is critical for another reason. It is completely isolated from the truck's starting batteries. A battery isolator disconnects the 2 systems when the engine is off. She can drain the auxiliary to 0, and the truck will still start in the morning. Without that isolator, running a heated blanket all night means a dead truck at 6 in the morning in a Walmart parking lot in North Dakota. She has seen it happen to other drivers. The tow truck costs more than the isolator. She spent $40 on the part and installed it herself. Now, even with the diesel heater and the electric blanket and the sleeping bag and the insulation, she still manages one more heat source. The oldest one, her own metabolism. 40 minutes before she seals up the sleeper for the night, she eats a high-fat meal. Peanut butter on crackers, canned sardines, a handful of almonds, sometimes a packet of tuna with olive oil if she has it. Digesting fat generates significantly more internal body heat than carbohydrates or protein. The process is called diet-induced thermogenesis. Your digestive system works harder to break down fatty foods, and that metabolic effort produces warmth that peaks 3 to 4 hours after eating. She times it so peak heat production hits between midnight and 1 a.m. Then she keeps a small bag of walnuts inside her sleeping bag for the 3 a.m. window. Half asleep, she eats a handful, and her metabolism relights for another few hours. Arctic Special Forces units use the identical technique before cold weather operations. She learned it from a trucker forum at 2 a.m. during a layover in Wyoming. And there is one thing she never touches in winter: alcohol. Someone at a truck stop offered her a flask during a cold snap last January, saying it would take the edge off. She declined. Smart move. Alcohol dilates blood vessels, pushing warm blood to the skin's surface, where it radiates into freezing air. The warmth lasts maybe 20 minutes. The accelerated heat loss that follows can trigger hypothermia in conditions that would otherwise be survivable. She has heard stories. Drivers who drank and fell asleep and did not wake up right. One driver she knew from a regular fuel stop lost 4 fingers. She does not judge. She just does not drink when it is cold. But all these systems address one threat: cold. There is a second threat that female drivers deal with every single night that male drivers barely think about. And it directly conflicts with staying warm: security. Every decision she makes about sealing her cab for warmth also affects how fast she can get out if she needs to. The thermal curtain that divides her cab from the sleeper also blocks her view of anyone approaching the driver's side door. The insulation panels on the windows eliminate visibility entirely. She is warm but blind. She has been approached 3 times in 9 years. Twice by someone trying door handles at truck stops after midnight. Once by a man who knocked on her window at a rest area at 3 a.m. asking for directions. 3 a.m. Nobody needs directions at 3 a.m. Her countermeasures are layered, same as her heating. A dash cam with a parking mode that activates on motion. A door bar wedged against the interior handle that prevents the door from being opened, even if someone defeats the lock. A personal alarm rated at 140 decibels, mounted within arm's reach of her sleeping position, and her dog, a 45-pound Australian shepherd named after a country singer she will only identify by first initial. He sleeps at her feet inside the sleeping bag, adding roughly 50 watts of body heat from a core temperature of 101 degrees. But his real value is not thermal. His ears catch sounds she cannot hear through insulated walls. He has growled twice in the middle of the night when someone was near the truck. Both times she hit the dash cam, turned on the headlights remotely, and whoever was there disappeared. For a woman sleeping alone in a metal box at a truck stop off the interstate at 2 a.m, That dog is worth more than every piece of survival equipment she owns combined. But here's the thing she told me that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. She said the cold isn't the hard part. The cold she figured out years ago. The hard part is knowing her company could fix this for $200 per truck and chooses not to. Every night she spends rigging diesel heaters, layering sleeping bags, timing her meals, and checking her exhaust vent is a night the company saved $11. She does the math sometimes when she can't sleep. $11 times 300 nights a year times 47,000 female drivers. That's $155 million the industry saves annually by letting its drivers figure out how not to freeze to death. She's not asking for sympathy. She's asking for a heater. 19 drivers died from cold exposure in their cabs last winter. Most were parked. Most had anti-idling policies. Most were found in trucks with no auxiliary heat source. The companies paid for funerals. They did not install heaters. She told me she figured out how to sleep in -20 using equipment she bought and installed in a parking lot. That's not a survival story. That's an engineering project she does every winter because her employer decided her comfort costs too much. And then they send a memo about sustainability. If you found this important, hit subscribe. There are more of these stories, and the industry is hoping you never hear them.